Say that again.
I said it's not whether it's influencers. It's just it is part of our existence. So like, you know, I used to, even like when I first started getting involved kind of stuff, and you know, like when it came to like voting, and I still have that kind of punk mentality of like fuck the system.
Yeah.
Vote. I'm not. I used to say I'm not very political. And it just reminded me that like there's, you know, I can't really say that I'm not political because every aspect of my being is political. In fact, you know, the things I've been through, the place I was born, the class I was born into, being gay, having been to jail and been through the social care system and stuff like that. It just inherently makes like everything about my existence is political.
Yeah.
I think naturally as two queer PLC people trying to exist and form a relationship in this day and age, our relationship is naturally political.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I guess from where you met, I'm just putting words in your mouth, but revolutionary queer politics has always been at the heart. And would you be where you are without that?
No.
No.
I was a completely different person before that day.
Yeah.
Literally. Like that day, it sounds stupid, but that day was like the beginning of a new era for me and how I came into being. And that wasn't even just limited to Levi. That wasn't even
Get in there, Ross.
That wasn't even just limited to Levi. That was about not only being exposed to Levi, but being exposed to Misha and being exposed to you.
Exposed to Misha.
And being exposed to you and being exposed to Lav as well.
Yeah.
And like, I met so many people who today I like.
Siobhan was on that action.
Siobhan was on that action. I knew Siobhan before though. I'd like done something with her before. Like we'd been in a group together for something. Yeah. But this was like I developed people who I never realized, but 4 years down the line, are like part of a family of queer people who I have around me. Yeah. And you know, I think sometimes our group, our family, or I like to call it, our house.
Yeah.
Our house, we're so used to like the way we act, and when we have like strays, like heterosexual strays, or people who are part of that like heterosexual or patriarchal existence, when they come into our group and they see us, and we just realize we have, it's like that, you know, that sobering feeling when you've been out all night and you like lift your head up and you're like, fuck. And you just look around and you're like, we're not fucking normal. Like, we aren't the norm. The way we act is not the norm. Nuh-uh. We have made it the norm because of the people we have around us, which is fucking incredible because that is such a form of subversive resistance to the structure in which we live and we survive. But we have no one. Everyone is fluid. Everyone, you know, it's chaos. It is chaos, but it's good chaos, and we're all here for each other. So like, of course, it's influenced love for me, not just romantic love with the person I've been with for 4 years, who I met that day, but also platonic love in the relationships I've created and the allies I've made and the camaraderie I've kind of been able to find. Yeah. Like, I'm surrounded by my own. And 4 years ago, when I was living in a house with 6 heterosexual white women from SOAS, who all were born abroad but didn't speak another language and studied African studies with the goal of working for the development department. Wow. Like, that day when I met everyone else. Yeah, it was the beginning of a massive change in my life.
Wow. Because that's something I really want to explore this year as well, in terms of like family, queer family. Because if we're looking at the influence of Stonewall, which was exactly what you said, how do we really cherish that? Yeah. And perpetuate it? I've got time for 2 more questions. Okay. 51 years ago, Martin Luther King had a dream and he was killed for it. Martin, whatever context, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Marsha P. Johnson, they were all killed for their dream. 51 years later, on the 50th anniversary of Stonewall riots, what is your dream, and are you prepared to die for it? Deal with that one.
I don't know. I think we live in a very different time where that I don't want how to explain it. The pressure's not on as much as it was, and I think we live in a very not in the sense that we don't have the same issues. Yeah. But we're all very comfortable. Even alongside our issues, a lot of us are still very comfortable. You know, we might face oppression, but we still, you know, we're still making rent. We can still go out and take drugs and party and have fun and do whatever we're doing. And I think the struggle was a very life or death situation back in the day, and people, it wasn't the fact that people were prepared to die for it. It's the fact that people were dying, and they had to do something about it. And obviously, people still face. I'm just speaking about in a British context. In terms of living in England, in my situation. That's why I don't really have faith in a lot of activism which happens in the UK, especially because I don't feel like people are in a situation where it is life or death. So
I disagree.
Can you explain that bit about the examples of British activism where you don't resonate with you?
What do you mean?
Because they're not life or death, or they're fluffy, or.
Well, just because I just don't see many people really putting themselves.
Seems more performative.
It's
what you're trying to say.
And obviously, I can't think of, unless you can, I can't think of a action or a form of activism in a UK context where people have risked their lives, or if anything, really risk the fact that they're going to be sent to jail for a long time. Obviously, you get the Stansted 15. I don't know if they generally thought that would be the case. I don't know if they saw that coming. I don't think they went into the action thinking that was going to be,
they were going to be charged on terror,
and whether or not they would have gone and done that protest regardless if they knew that the outcome would be to be charged on terror charges, then I just don't think that would have happened. And I think in those days it just wasn't a choice. It wasn't a situation of shall we put our lives online, in a situation of the fact that they didn't have a choice.
Thank you.
I have to say that I think it's really important to define what you mean by death in that sense, because in the past 51 years the idea of death has definitely transitioned and become something else, like emotional death, death of freedom, the death of individuality, the death of speech. I think that it's really important to consider it from a perspective which doesn't just mean whether you're existing or not existing in terms of actually breathing or not. Stansted 15 is a representation of people who have literally had their freedom die. So I understand what you're saying in the sense that we don't have that same fear of being alive or not being alive, but there's a difference between surviving and living. And I think that we are in a situation where we are all surviving, but none of us are living. Making rent is not living. Making rent is surviving to get by. So you have a roof over your head.
Who's really in the UK